I am Rock Lee, and you're listening to the Zanman.
Oh, yes, Danhausen here, Danhausen. Listen to the Zanman, or be cursed.
Tonight, I am Batman, and you're listening to the Zanman.
Well, Mr. Zanman.
Ladies and gents, you are currently, at this nanosecond, at this current time frame, you are listening to Zandom Thoughts. Zandom Thoughts is the podcast where we ask the hard-hitting questions such as, what do vegan zombies eat? I'll give you a sec. Figure it out. They eat grains. Though zombies wouldn't eat vegans because the vegans... No, I'm just kidding. I'm not attacking all of our vegan listeners out there. You're friends too. You might be a little bit crankier than the rest of us if you've ever heard the Joe Rogan stand-up comedy, but you're friends nonetheless. Ladies and gents, we also ask the important questions of, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Or rather, we'll narrow it down from an apocalypse. We'll take the thousands, the millions of zombies, and we'll narrow it down to just a couple and say, what would happen in a real life zombie scenario? And we got a couple of examples here today. Of course, I have to put it in quotations because a couple of them do leave a lot to the imagination, of course, but a couple of these also have inspired a lot of zombie source material, a lot of zombie books out there, and even one of the big popular hip shows, which was a video game at first, you'll never take that from us, of The Last of Us. There was something that actually inspired their zombie apocalypse. But we'll talk about all that a little bit later. Most of you who are listening to this that heard The Last of Us, you probably already know what I'm going to talk about in that regard. But we have a bunch of other unexplained mysteries, which are probably explained, but unexplained. Don't argue with me on this, okay? And also, I want to take a quick second to thank everybody for checking out episode 1 of the podcast. It did way better than I was originally expecting. Between all of the platforms, which are all still processing the new views and stuff from this first week, I got about 25 views on the first episode, which is better than any podcast iteration I've tried so far. And a lot of it is thanks to people who checked it out on YouTube. Although the subscription numbers could be higher, I am grateful for the amount of views, because even though it's only about 25 views across all platforms, I don't view it as only. I view it as a milestone. We already have 25 views on this brand new podcast, starting from ground zero. So thank you guys if you checked that out, and thank you to everybody who reached out and gave kind words about the podcast. It really does make the difference. Yes, in episode 1, I stressed, I do this for fun. I do it because I like it, and deep down, I do it because I need it as an outlet. But whenever people reach out and they say, hey, I enjoyed that thing that you created, it's going to ensure that for the rest of the day, I have a goofy little smile. No matter who it's from, it makes my day. So thank you to everybody who commented on it, and hopefully we can continue to make it just as entertaining moving forward. We're putting brick after brick. Look at this empire we're creating. And hopefully those bricks are enough to protect us from the zombie outbreak, because I'm not going to spend too much time talking. Maybe as we go forward, I'll get a little bit more comfortable and ramble on. But today we are going to get straight into the action. Let's zombify it up in here, shall we? On my old podcast, I typically would like to wait around November time before I did any zombie-related episodes. Mainly because there's something about watching undead corpses come back to life and feast on human flesh, and they all get on top of a body and just pull pieces of ham on and shove it in their faces. That just makes me hungry and makes me think of Thanksgiving. It's a Thanksgiving tradition, and we love ourselves some zombies here on Zandom Thoughts. Is he being serious? Do zombie movies really make him hungry? No, but I don't know. I learned this little tidbit that on The Walking Dead, whenever zombies were crowded around a downed human and they were like eating him and the person's just screaming, they're like, ah, and the zombies are all eating. They're actually eating. And those are real life people just dressed up as zombies. In case you didn't know, those aren't the real life zombie stories we're covering here today. But usually what they're eating are like not painted meat, but ham that was made to look like human flesh. So they're just sitting there snacking on ham, and I was like, oh, I get it. That would be actually really fun, just taking a piece of ham and just... That's great audio right there. Did you like me slurping in your ear? But no, I don't know why I brought that up. It seems like a good transition into the fact that The Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, George Romero, we think of those kind of zombies, which are literally just dead people walking around, as the standard zombie. But those weren't really normalized or popularized until George Romero came onto the scene, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not an expert on zombie lore or zombie history per se, but I do know that like until Night of the Living Dead came out, zombies were always thought of something completely different. We're talking about you go across the waters into other countries, and a zombie is somebody who is still alive, but they cannot act on their own will. They are being forced to do things against their will. People black out for months, and then they learn they've been going around for some mad scientist or some voodoo ritual witch doctor, and have been doing their bidding against their will. They don't have control over their own brain. They just go forward and do what they're told, like a good little zombie. That's kind of what the traditional zombie is. It wasn't until, like I said, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, where it was like, oh, a zombie is somebody who dies and comes back to life. Not saying he invented the concept of that kind of zombie. In fact, George Romero actually used that as a metaphor on, like, I don't know how to word it without a script. I'm nothing without my scripts, dang it. In Dawn of the Dead, all of the zombies went to the mall, and it was a commentary on all of these undead bodies. Don't know what they're doing. They have no control. They're just acting on primal instinct, and still all they care about is going to the place of consumerism. George Romero in a lot of his movies would use mindless walking dead things as a commentary on social issues and stuff like that. And it was through those metaphors and through those social commentary movies, ironically, where zombies started straying away from, I can't control my mind, where have I been for the last 3 months, to brains, ham. And so immediately we already are seeing some red flags of, well, how can it be real if the whole thing's just a metaphor? And what if I told you there are some real life examples of both of these things? Because we are tackling the word zombie from multiple perspectives, from somebody who simply doesn't have control over their mind, from people cheating death, and various ways. I'm not going to give too much away, but in the intro, I did mention The Last of Us and how they have a very specific thing that was drawn from nature itself to explain their zombie apocalypse. And I have not just one, but and not just a couple. I have multiple examples to draw from. And I guess I should just stop talking and read these excerpts from an article. Now, there's going to be a lot of scientific words, and I apologize in advance if I just completely butcher them. But there's going to be a lot of them, so bear with me. Number 1, the Ophiocordyceps unilateralis is a pathogenic fungi that preys on carpenter ants and snatches their body for their own gain. We have a mini tongue twister coming up. This fungus infects the ant, oh my goodness, and then uses chemical signals to direct the hapless insect on a very strange path. It's lost its mind! The zombified ant leaves its colony and begins to climb up a nearby tree, taking a jaw grip on the underside of a leaf, so it just sits there and hangs there. A 2019 study published in the journal Behavioral Ecology suggests the fungus targets phototaxis pathways, which makes the infected zombie ants climb towards the light. The ant eventually dies as the fungus spreads around the ant's body, and the fungus produces a stalk from the dead zombie's head, from which spores are released, intended on infecting more ants in the colony. That's what The Last of Us is based on, the cordyceps fungus. It infects the human body, and obviously it's a little bit different where the infection spreads not through spores necessarily, although that's kind of how it happened in the beginning, but through biting people and through scratching them, and so the spores from the infected things get into the cuts. It's a tackle on the cordyceps, and it's a tackle on the modernized idea of zombies, which is don't get bit or you'll turn. But I thought that was an interesting thing, and it's actually kind of dang nature, you scary moment, because it literally just takes one single individual, makes them patient zero, and then it's like, we coming for you, colony. Now, it's not going to infect like thousands upon thousands of ants per se, but it is going to get a couple of them. And it's essentially its version of like a dandelion, where the dandelion uses the little bristles and you blow the dandelion, and by the next day you have hundreds of dandelions grown in your yard now because you blew it, and now all the spores spread and grew in the earth. That's kind of what this fungus is doing. It's like, I'm going to keep reproducing, but you're... I don't know. It's cool and scary if that were to ever like... Because obviously those spores don't necessarily work on humans, but The Last of Us suggests that all it takes is one small mutation before we're freaking going and eating people and turning them into mushroom creatures like us. The second example is caterpillar fungus, also called cordyceps or even the zombie mushroom. This is from a different article. It's kind of calling it... It's a very similar thing. I think it's a slight variation of the one we just read about. It's not necessarily the Ophiocordyceps. You know how they have their scientific names. I don't think it's the same scientific name, but it's the same breed of mushroom that it infects people. It's unusual in that it propagates itself by infecting one specific insect. This is where it differs. The ghost moth caterpillar. Upon entering its gut, the mushroom slowly kills the caterpillar. That's ridiculous. That's mean. Caterpillars are usually harmless. I imagine this one has spikes growing out of it and kills innocent people for this mushroom to have a vendetta against it. It's like, I don't like ants. Not you guys. You're hardworking. I'm going to go get this lazy gut from this caterpillar over here. He's a ghost. Then mummifies its body until there's nothing left but a long tube-like mushroom. It also has a long history in traditional medicine, meaning once the caterpillar's destroyed it, I don't know, it creates some sort of nutrients that science can use for some vaccines. I won't get political, dang it. I won't get political. But yeah, it's just a play on it. I think that's going to be for the insects and for the animal-based zombifications. It's going to be a lot of the similar lineup, because there's a lot of plants out there that are secretly evil, and they're going to be the cause of the zombie apocalypse. It's not going to be the government working on a vaccine that turns people mad. It's not going to be somebody amplifying the rage virus where someone loses their mind and then just, they're so angry they got to bite people, and then that person gets infected. If you've ever seen like the 28 Days, 28 Weeks series, that's the one I'm making fun of right now. Anyway, we're reading the next one. Roly-poly bugs, potato bugs, pill bugs. They're the little, if you've ever seen one, you know what I'm talking about. They're cute and innocuous members of the insect world, right? Sure, as long as they haven't been taken over by the Nah, let me try and say this for real. as long as they haven't been taken over by the acanthocephalin, or better known as the Plagiaurianchus cylindriceus parasite. Oh my goodness. Or better known as, like, people are saying that. They're just spouting that off like, oh, of course, the Plagiaurianchus cylindriceus. According to the University of Michigan's Animal Diversity Web, the parasite lives in the intestinal tracts of starlings, or sterndiae, and gets pooped out and eaten by hungry pillbugs, which love bird poop. Once inside the body of an oblivious roly-poly, the parasite takes over its brain and urges the zombified bug to do an ill-advised thing, such as making its whereabouts widely known to the predators like starlings. And thus the parasite completes its journey when a starling swoops in and eats the zombied pillbug, and the parasite waits for its chance to find another bug upon the practice of mind control. So obviously it's trying to reproduce. That's like every organism's basic function is to try and reproduce and create more of me. And so it's hard not to be like, oh, it's just trying to keep going and keep prolonging its lifespan, this parasite. But it seems like this parasite just kills for fun. It's like, I got this roly-poly now. Oh, where are you going, roly-poly? I have to walk out into the light. And then a bird swoops down and eats it. The parasite's just in the bird's tummy, like, again. But yeah, no, it's an example of how it definitely, there are parasites, there are viruses, there are fungus out there that can affect one particular group of things, but not everything. But I'm pretty sure through that cross-contamination, that's how humans are going to be infected one day, and we're going to be living in The Last of Us, the pillbug parasite. Anyway, 4. It's straight out of Hollywood. A quick stab to the brain turns an innocent onlooker into the victim of a brutal assault and kidnapping. Except this time, that defenseless victim is one of the world's most hated insects, the cockroach. And the villain is a wasp. In this true story, the venom of an emerald cockroach wasp, an Impulex compressa, renders the cockroach unable to move, though it is not paralyzed, according to the research published in 2010. Once the cockroach is immobilized, the wasp implants in it, yeah, I've seen this one, in its abdomen with a single egg and then drags it to its lair. The wasp drags the cockroach to its lair. The larva later hatches and eats the still living but zombie-like cockroach from the inside out. A month later, the now maturing wasp flies away from its scene of the crime, leaving only a rotting cockroach carcass behind. So essentially, it finds a breeding ground so that when its babies hatch, it has food to eat and it can grow in a safe environment inside this cockroach. I know there are wasps in the desert. Like, everybody looks at tarantulas. And if you go to, I think it's like Arizona, there's tarantulas that walk around the desert. And one of their biggest predators is a type of wasp. And the wasp literally will just sting them, kind of paralyze them. They can feel everything, but they're paralyzed. Takes it to its lair, lays a bunch of eggs in them, and then the spider kind of gets eaten from the inside out. Not kinda, that's what happens. And it's just such a terrible fate. And if spiders' faces didn't make me think, like, when I see spiders' faces, I instantly think they're all over me. So if that didn't happen, I would probably feel a lot more worse for it, but I'm like, dang, yeah. But what a way to go, man. That's treacherous. Talk about being used. That's a terrible life to have. That's obvious. Anyway, the final, we got 3, 4, 5. Okay, we got a lot more in the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is scary, bro. It's a story of crab meets barnacle with a twist. A female succulina barnacle, Succulina carcini, also known as the crab hacker barnacle, wants to nest inside a crab, so it looks around until it finds a soft tissue at the crab's joint to burrow into, leaving its old barnacle body behind. Once inside, the barnacle makes a nice little home in that, and it looks like a tumor. So like a crab's joint just starts puffing up because this thing is inside it, extending tendrils through the crab's body, slowly eating its host. After killing the sex organs of its new host, the barnacle makes its still living home become a babysitter as the crab loses interest in anything but serving its zombie overlord. See, I told you, this is the original version of zombie where it can't, I can't help it. It's so be. Have you ever seen Bug's Life? Where the mosquito sees the like shock trap and it's like, I'm going towards the light. They're like, no, don't go towards the light. He goes, I can't help it. It's so beautiful. That's literally what happens to this crab. He's like, I have to go over here and get clams out of the ocean so I have breakfast for tomorrow. And instead his body's taking him the other direction. He's like, I wanted to go get clams. And it's like, you're going to go in this cave. I don't know. And it's getting slowly eaten while this is going on. According to the Smithsonian Institution, the barnacle manipulates the crab to care for the barnacle like it would for its own offspring, protecting it, grooming it, and wafting it with fresh oxygenated water. My goodness. The barnacle also bores a hole through the crab shell and invites willing males to come and mate. Hey, the babies are going to be well looked after in a cozy home. Interesting. So, what a way to go. No, the babies are going to, it's going to get infected. That's kind of like a It Follows, where it's a commentary on STDs. And so in order to pass the entity that follows you around on, you got to, sleep with someone. Apparently that's like this, except in order to keep its lifespan going, the crab is like, he just spiffs up the crab, makes it like the most bachelor-esque, the most appealing bachelor crab you'll ever see. And then it's like, see how well I have it? Why don't you come and lie with me so I can pass this thing on to you? It's like how there's certain shows and it'll talk about how like there's a hive mind that enslaves people. And then you learn later on that the hive mind made the utopia better because before it was just a bunch of savages who were killing each other. And now they're a society who are working together to create some pretty good things. They're not saying the crab didn't deserve a life of its own. It should have the option of going and catching clams for breakfast tomorrow. But in this, I don't know. That tangent was failed. I'm just going to admit it and go forward. The poor Lucog argia, a Costa Rican spider just looking to catch some bugs, can be taken over by a parasitic wasp. Oh, this might be similar to the tarantula. It's a parasitic wasp that plants its larva inside the spider's body along with a new blueprint. Instead of building a web, the spider spends the last night of its life constructing a silk cocoon, which becomes a home for its killers, huh? When the silk sac is done, the larvae kill the spider. They take up residence in the cocoon, suspend safely above the predators of the rainforest floor. In the silk cocoon. So they're pretty much, here, do this work. All right, thanks. Shoots him in the head. Goes. What an existence. And the next one, parasitic puppeteers are pulling wolf strings in Yellowstone National Park, goading the canines into taking greater risks. People are reading a new self-inspirational book. And we've come to find that people are a lot more confident now. It's like a news report. The parasite is a single-celled organism called the Toxoplasm gondii, to which only reproduces in cats. The T. gondii causes a disease called toxoplasmosis that comes with a range of symptoms, which includes testosterone levels and behavioral changes. Research suspect Yellowstone wolves were exposed to T. gondii after eating the feces of infected cougars, typical dogs eating poop. Once infected, the wolves were more likely to exhibit risky behaviors, such as abandoning their packs to form new ones, or asserting themselves as pack leaders when they have no business. Behaviors that likely require vicious fights and may even lead to death. The researchers proposed that this behavior could influence the rest of the pack and increase the likelihood that uninfected individuals encounter infected cougars. So, it's essentially the symbiote suit from Spider-Man. Whenever Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3 starts wearing the black Spider-Man suit, now all of a sudden he's confident and dancing randomly in public, and everybody's like, "Ew." That's essentially what this parasite does to wolves. He makes them black Spider-Man. For some frog species, being a zombie comes with temporary perks. Ooh. In a 2016 study published in the journal Ecology and Evolution, researchers found that male common mist frogs infected with a fungus called Batrachodium dendrobideus were more successful at finding a mate compared to uninfected frogs. Well, because they have the spores probably that are like, oh, come mate with me and get infected. Oh, we're taking over the whole horde of frogs. Alrighty then. Infected males called for a female mate more during the night than uninfected frogs, which may explain their so it just makes them more confident. See, that's what all these really are. A 2016 study in the Biological Letters magazine found similar results while observing male Japanese tree frogs infected with the same fungus. In that study, infected males called for a mate more rapid. So it just makes them more confident. It doesn't like really change anything. It's just like, this is Michael. He minds his business. He wants to go talk to that girl, but he won't. Michael goes home alone. Gets infected with the fungus. Hey girl, you wanna go to me and down and see you? You're going here, you never did. You wanna go over here? No, you don't. Oh, okay, I'll go over to this one. Apparently they're Cajun. Not all people who catcall are Cajun, Alex. All good things are worth waiting for, right? For cicada larvae, they may wait up to 17 years during the time they stay buried underground, waiting to emerge as adult insects. But when some cicadas finally drag themselves out of the earth, they are turned into sex-crazed zombies by a butt-hungry fungus. According to a study in the journal Scientific Reports, the fungus Masopora cicadina targets emerging cicadas and eats away at their abdomen and rear end, leaving a yellowish clump of spores in their place. The fungus also takes control of the cicada's brain, sending it into a frenzy and spreading the fungus spores to other cicadas that mate with it. So yeah, there's a lot of mating going on in the animal kingdom to spread this virus, to spread these spores. It's It Follows. We are witnessing It Follows. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these was the inspiration for it. Even sea-dwelling animals can't escape from body-snatching parasites. The eucalyptus, that's not it, but that's what I'm going with. Californiensis, a species of parasitic flatworm, can infiltrate the brains of California killifish and cause them to swim to water surface, exposing them to flying predators that feast on their fins. Just their fins. Hey, come here. Aw. Once inside their new fish's homes, these tiny flatworms reproduce and form thousands of cysts within their host. According to a journal known as Proceedings of the Royal Society B, the flatworm changes the fish's serotonin and dopamine metabolism to control the fish's movements. So yeah, a lot of these parasites sound sadistic, not just because they take over, like that's nature, they have to do it to survive. But some of them are just like, let's see how long we can get this fish tortured before it dies. Essentially the vibe I'm getting there. Chill out. And for the last one, we revisit T. gondii. One of the best ways for a parasite to spread is to be eaten by its host's natural predators. As previously mentioned, T. gondii can change the behavior of its host. However, in some species, T. gondii will cause its zombie host to walk straight into a predator's mouth. So we know T. gondii is effective on multiple species of animals. That's not good for humans. They're growing. They're evolving. Pretty soon, we're gonna be like, I don't know. I can't go into what I was going to say without referencing a Joe Rogan stand-up. It was like, dolphins are smarter than humans. Like, dolphins are essentially fish, but nobody catches dolphins. If humans were like, if there were like hamburgers floating down Main Street, you'd be catching humans all day. Well, T. gondii is going to make that happen. A 2013 study published in PLOS One, a magazine, found that mice infected with T. gondii showed high levels of testosterone in their system, making them less afraid of cats, so it makes them more confident. Another study in PLOS One suggested that infected rats feel a type of attraction to the smell of cat urine, making them more likely to live near their feline foes. So that's 11 examples of zombification in the animal kingdom, but we're not even halfway through it yet. I'm not even halfway through my notes. I'm probably a fourth of the way through my notes. So if you are enjoying that zombie goodness, why not hit that follow, that subscribe button if you haven't already, or take some time to rate the podcast if you're enjoying yourself. Maybe you want to wait for a few more episodes, but I'm seeping my way into your brain through your ear canals right now, and I'm controlling you, yes. Yes, I'm controlling you to hit that heart if you're on Spotify, or rate us 5 stars on there. On an Apple Podcasts as well. Yes. Do all of the things. Follow us on social media if that's done by this point. Yes. Retracting my tendrils, mind control over. We can get back to enjoying the podcast now. But at this point in the podcast, we are going over to the human side of the real life zombie stories, in which they are also going to be read in individual cases and one by one scenarios that I pulled from articles. And although I did edit a lot of the writing in some of these articles, I am going to just read them as is. So first one is, zombies have been a part of Haitian folklore and traditionally have been believed to be deceased people or revived by Bokor. So it's essentially what I said. A sorcerer or something revived this dead body to do their bidding, but there's also mind control cases. This one is believing it to be the raising them from the dead. The zombie is said to be under the control of the Bokor and can be used at the will of this Bokor. The aspect of Haitian folklore is thought to be West African origin, and today is widely associated with voodoo practices. One of the most famous cases in history of alleged real-life zombies is that of Clervius Narcisse, a Haitian man born in 1922. In 1962, at the age of 40, he was admitted into Schweitzer Hospital and was operated by American medical staff. Clervius's symptoms included a severe fever, fatigue, and coughing up blood. Clervius was pronounced dead shortly afterwards by 2 American doctors, held in a storage for a day, and subsequently buried afterwards. Nearly 20 years later, in 1980, a man claiming to be Clervius Narcisse reappeared in the city of La Esther. He confirmed his identity to his sister, Angela Narcisse, and other villagers by using a childhood nickname and sharing intimate information about their family that only a family member would know. According to Clervius, he had been paralyzed by a voodoo priest to make him appear dead, and had been conscious but immobile during his burial. The Bokor priest and then exhumed him, drugged him, and enslaved him and forced him to work on a sugar plantation. Man, what a way to get it. Like, usually in cartoons and stuff, that's where I'm pulling my references. This story doesn't add up, because in this cartoon, they would typically be like, all right, now you're going to capture this guy for me so I can enslave him too. Instead, he's just like, now I'm going to have you do something truly diabolical. Go harvest my sugar mine, please. He alleged that he had been made to consume a paste which effectively rendered him unable to think for himself, and it also caused memory loss. He said he was forced to work on the plantation along other workers. Did he have a hand in capturing those other workers? The cartoons don't lie! When the voodoo priest died and the regular medication ceased, Clervius escaped, eventually returning home to his family. The villagers believed his story, and thus he was considered to be a living zombie. There are even photographs of Clervius sitting on top of his own tombstone, from which he had allegedly been exhumed for decades. In years following, several doctors, scientists investigated the case. It was particularly perplexing that Clervius's death had been verified by 2 American doctors when they examined him at the time, so multiple testimonies confirmed that he had indeed died. Over the years, a number of theories have circulated, including that Clervius was administered with a combination of subduing substances, including a component of pufferfish venom And Clairvis died for real in 1994 at the age of 72, not 40. So, dang. Yeah, no, the pufferfish thing I know because they extracted it. And they essentially, I don't know if it's been used for torture or something. Maybe I'm thinking of a movie or something, but they essentially inject their victim or whoever they're trying to administer on with this pufferfish DNA. And they can't move, they can't talk, they can't do anything, but they can feel everything. And so it's kind of like a torture method. I think I'm thinking of Law Abiding Citizen, wherever this guy is trying to get back for the guy who did something terrible to his family. I'm not going to say it here because this is getting uploaded to YouTube, and so I don't want to be demonetized. But it rhymes with grape. And he was getting back the man who did this to his wife and injected him with this stuff and then proceeded to chainsaw his limbs off. Very tasteful. Very tasteful. But I think we can all agree he might have been in the right. Anywho, that is crazy. Like I said, that it's the idea that you could just black out, and it's like the medication thing is very similar to a lot of the Animal Kingdom thing, because he's getting substances that are changing all sorts of different things inside of his brain. It's causing memory loss. Imagine one day you just wake up, 20 years has passed, and you've been serving this dude on his sugar plantation. Crazy. But that's the original version of the word zombie, and it paired it with literally the living dead. That's why this one went first. It's one of the most unique cases. And yeah, I don't really have too many other thoughts. It's cool. It's a cool story. But now we move on from the voodoo child section of the zombie podcast. I don't know what just happened there. My breath just got taken away from me. I'm getting infected. I shouldn't be drinking these energy drinks that I just got from Aldi. They're called Gridlock. My cousin a couple years ago turned me on to them because they're like $1.68 per can. And that's one of the best deals you'll get for energy drinks. And a lot of them taste like some Monster flavors. But apparently upon drinking them, I just lost my breath completely. Like in the middle of a sentence, I was like... I'm also still waking up. I'm recording this early in the morning, so that could be it too. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's topical. We are going to the section now, not that isn't inspired by mind loss or voodoo or anything like that, but more of cases that people would chalk up. Well, some of them are. The majority of these are like ones that people chalk up to. You've heard of the bath salt zombie, people who are induced on drugs, all sorts of stuff like that. Those are what a lot of these ones that are coming up are going to be attested to. The first one being the Chinese zombie bus driver incident. The recent terrifying spate of cannibalistic attacks seemed to have spread in China as a drunk bus driver was caught on camera gnawing at a woman's face in a horrific random attack. The unfortunate woman will apparently require plastic surgery to repair her damaged face. According to the local news reports, the driver, named Dong, had been drinking heavily during lunch with his friends before the outburst on Tuesday. He then ran onto the road in the city of Wenzhou in the southeast China and stood in front of a car being driven by the woman named Du, stopping her from moving. On a side note, Du and Dong sounds like it would be a children's book. Du and Dong. Du and Dong set a pace. Du and Dong decided to race. Du and Dong vanished without a trace because Dong decided to eat Du's face. This is a poem by Heidenreich. If you give it that reference, the last part, I love you. It's like a Dr. I've been reading too much Dr. Seuss to my kids. Either way. But Dong climbed on the car's hood and started beating the vehicle while the panicked woman screamed for help. Help! When she left the car and tried to escape, the bus driver leapt on top of her and wrestled her to the ground. It was then that Dong started biting Du's face, leaving her covered in blood and weeping as passerbys tried to pull the attacker off his victim. Witnesses said that the bus driver had gone crazy and was successful in resisting attempts to subdue him. When police arrived, they managed to take Dong into custody, bringing the appalling rampage rampage to an end. Du was taken to the hospital where doctors said she would need surgery to repair her nose and her lips. So she got her nose bit off. That's terrible. Like whenever I see a movie and someone gets their fingers bitten off or the zombie just like starts chewing their face off, that's always like, dang, you might as well just shoot me in the head at that point. Like, have you ever just, like there's movies where somebody gets a leg cut off and they get a nail driven through their hand and they just get one injury after another. And it's like, at what point do you just say, just kill me? To me, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this truthfully, but that's a rough situation. And originally I was going to play a game where I was like, on the Zanman podcast, do we say it's zombie or not zombie? But this one literally gave us the answer, and a couple of these already do the same because it was like, and there's a couple of cases where I could probably do that, but this one was like, he was drinking. But there's got to be a little something extra, you know? It's not, I know there's angry drunks out there, but I've never heard of someone getting so angry that they're just like, ham, I need more ham. That's my nose, that's not ham. But we go from one Chinese story to the next. Chinese teacher subway incident. A retired teacher in Guangzhou, China, allegedly brutally attacked a younger man in a squabble over a subway seat on Monday, repeatedly biting him until both men were covered in blood. The older man, a 67-year-old who has been identified as Chen, boarded the subway around 11:30. The younger man, 28, identified as Wu, reportedly shoved Chen out of the way as he scrambled to get a seat. Chen then began chasing Wu for not respecting his elders. A witness told New Express Daily, why do they include that right in the middle of the sentence? I know they have to cite their sources, but that just throws me off so much when I'm reading articles. I need to just start doing work and actually editing these articles. Gosh, now I have to actually work to make this podcast good. The witness noted that the bystanders initially did try to break up the fight, but it quickly became so violent that they were frightened away. Both Chen and Wu only suffered minor injuries. Neither man is facing charges. Both reportedly apologized. So why is that included in this article? This is a real-life zombie story article, and they included this in there. Why is that included in there? I guess I did kind of skip over the part where he literally bit him until both were covered in blood. I did read that, and then I blocked it out mentally. I was like, these two just fought over a seat. No, he literally bit him in the face and everything, but then both apologized for it. I guess that's just normal. I don't know. It just writes about it like it's such a normal incident. Like, oh, they both apologized and they're cool now. They go skateboarding on the weekends. But I don't know. Not a zombie attack, I guess. Brazilian boy water ask is the next one. Kelvin Santos was declared deceased after he stopped breathing. I guess that would be it. Due to complications from bronchial pneumonia at Albernaldo Santos Hospital in northern Brazilian city. One of, SBT, one of Brazil's leading TV networks, reported that while awaiting for the body to be released into family custody, the infant was placed in an airtight body bag for 3 hours. The family gathered for an open casket wake later that day, where, according to the 2-year-old's aunt, during which the infant repeatedly appeared to move, before apparently sitting up and asking his father for a drink of water. The entire family thought they had witnessed a miracle and that Kelvin had in fact come back to life. But a few seconds later, the boy fell back in the casket and his family could not revive him again. The boy was rushed back to the hospital when he was pronounced dead a second time. Dead people don't just wake up and talk, Antonio Santos, the boy's father, said. I'm determined to find out the truth. I don't know. I imagine it's it's obviously more than that. He sat up and was like, Father, I want a drink of water. But like my initial thought is like how whenever you crush a bug or something and then their nerves start twitching. That's what I would have initially said. But no, that would be crazy. You're like, oh, you're dead. Oh, he's alive. It's a miracle. Oh, why would you do that? Like, it's just such a tease of a situation. And obviously I laugh, but as a father, that would definitely suck. thinking and having hope for a very split second that, oh, my boy isn't dead. He's actually alive, only for him to not be able to be revived again. And you could look at it as one last chance to say goodbye or something like that. They didn't really, everybody was in such a shock. Oh, he's asking for water. Go get him water. They turn away, look back. He's back down to it. I haven't seen any theories as to why this happened. My theory would be something along the lines of he was freshly dead. Like he literally died early that day. There was no embalming process or anything. And after he died and they couldn't revive him, he was instantly put in an airtight body bag to where it was like, I don't know. I want to say the way they described it was almost vacuum sealed. And I would hate to think that vacuum sealing him in there was what prevented him from being revived later. But I would also think that maybe the airtight bag like suppressed his blood flow or something. Obviously, if he's dead, the blood's not flowing. I don't know, but it suppressed something in the body that continued after he was taken out. That would be my only thought process. Or like the brain had like, you know how buildings shut down and they have the emergency generators? The body like essentially tried to do that. And it's like, we're back up and running. Oh, it died again. Again, I don't want to think about this situation if it were me, but the possibilities, I can't help but like laugh, not in hilarity, but oh. I don't know. I'm an awkward laugher, okay? I'm an awkward laugher. Next incident. Antron Singleton, a.k.a. Big Lurch. On April 10th, 2002, 25-year-old Singleton murdered his 21-year-old roommate, Tynesha Ysace, in the apartment he shared with her and her boyfriend in Los Angeles, California. The victim was found in her apartment at night by a friend. Her chest had been torn open and a 3-inch blade was found broken off in her scapula. Teeth marks were found on her face and on her lungs, which had been torn from her chest. The friend testified that Singleton was naked and covered in blood, standing on the street and staring at the sky. Bath salts. A medical examination performed shortly after his capture found human flesh in his stomach that was not his own. The victim's boyfriend said he and the aspiring rapper used PCP, not bath salts, the day before the murder took place. On November 7th, 2003, Singleton was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He had been convicted of murder and aggravated mayhem the previous June after pleading not guilty by reason of insanity at the time of the murder. Their defense argued that Singleton was in a psychotic state due to his use of PCP the night before the murder. The court ruled that his intoxication and claimed insanity were not satisfactory reasons for committing this crime. The district attorney argued that drug use cannot be used as grounds for an insanity plea. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, nah, man, you might have not been in your right mind, but you're not insane. Like, you were clearly in your right mind every other time. Plus, if PCP was done the night before, I'm not a drug expert. Wouldn't it be out of your system by that point if it was done the next day? I don't know. Like, is there a time of day that said? On our 24 day, he murdered the thing. They found him at the apartment at night, so it had to been at least close to 24 hours. So, yeah. The PCP probably wouldn't explain it. He might have taken another dose of something afterwards, but I feel like that would have been brought up in the court notes or something, especially if they were doing the plea, but I guess he wouldn't have won either. I don't know. That's a weird case. I don't think it's a zombie attack. I do think it was probably drug related. But yeah, that's remnants of one of the more popular ones that we're about to talk about. But I think it was a big story because it was Big Lurch. He was an aspiring rap artist that actually made somewhat of a name for himself, only to be like known as a zombie at this point because he ripped, I think it was her lungs out of her body and ate them. What a freaking zombie. The next one is known as the Florida zombie, not to be confused with the Florida bath salt zombie, but it's known as the Florida zombie. This one's a little bit more horrific than the Florida bath salt zombie, I think. And it's by a young man named Austin Haroof, and I have various articles that I pulled from and took notes on the case, and that's kind of what I will be doing. In 2016, Austin Haroof murdered Florida couple John Stevens III and Michelle Michonne Wow. Both whom were in their 50s. In a vicious and seemingly random knife attack. When police arrived on the scene, Austin was observed eating away at John Stevens' face in a couple's driveway. When Austin was arrested, emergency workers and police found fleshed in Austin's teeth, which was proof that they needed to prove this was a crime with cannibalistic intentions. Autopsies showed that the couple died quickly through the knife wounds and therefore did not have to endure the pain of being eaten alive. Still, it was a gruesome scene that was bathed in blood and gore. It was said that while subduing Austin, massive amounts of force, including a taser, a police dog, and multiple officers were required to take him down. Drug use. It's got to be drug use. Austin and his defense team claimed that he was suffering from a psychotic episode where he, 1, couldn't tell what was real, and 2, couldn't distinguish right from wrong. He claimed he was fleeing a demon, quote unquote, who was talking to him. He remembers seeing a dark figure and upon running away ended up at a Florida couple's house. He recalls coming face to face with Michelle and then recalls attacking her with a knife in the garage but couldn't understand why. A neighbor came to intervene, and this is something Austin didn't remember in spite of injuring that neighbor pretty significantly. No drugs or bath salts or anything showed up on his blood tests or lab tests. It was a case of nobody saw this coming, too, as he was a bright student who often seemed happy, kept up with his schoolwork, presented as a good student, son, kid, and got good grades. He was also an avid athlete who worked out quite a bit, which might explain why it took so much force to contain him now. No, not with a taser. I feel like people don't understand the amount of shock that comes out of these tasers, and on top of that, a dog and fully grown officers. There was something else going on. Though his parents did admit that he had been acting strange for weeks leading up to this. On one occasion, Austin claimed that he had been given superpowers, apparently if it takes that much to get him down, he does, and was sent to this world to help people. On another occasion, he moved his bed into the garage in order to flee a demon that was tormenting him in his room. One final incident that occurred just a few hours before his attack saw him attempting to drink cooking oil. His mother stopped him only to find he had been eating a bowl of cheese and cooking oil in the kitchen. The prosecution found text messages and calls in which Austin often spoke about being drunk to the point of blacking out for weeks leading up to the murder back in 2016, which is one of the defenses they tried to use. However, as of 2022, he was found not guilty by way of insanity. And I feel like this is kind of one of those classic the devil made me do it scenarios where there's a lot of unexplained details of the case, especially the no drugs, or because that was the thing. Even though the article mentioned that he had the tendency to black out drunk, that would have shown up on his lab tests, wouldn't it? So yeah, no, this definitely had to be like a mental lapse, and you never know what's going to cause that pressure and stuff like that. But on that same note, maybe he was dabbling in the voodoo and it was only a matter of time before he was going to be working on someone's sugar plantation. But that's just one of the crazier ones. I wanted to more use this one to list the details of, real life zombie story. Yeah, right. It's just going to be people on drugs and stuff. But there are situations where people just have no good explanation other than a mental lapse. Maybe he actually was possessed by a demon, if you believe in that kind of stuff, which I do. Or maybe it was something else entirely. And even to this day, I went back today to look up and see if any other things had been figured out. Nope, no new articles, no anything other than people just talking about the court case or anything. So it's still an unsolved mystery. And although we can claim that Austin didn't do drugs or anything like that, or maybe he had a drug that didn't show up on a drug test, but we can't confirm it, we can kind of confirm that the next Florida killer did, because he's known as the Florida bath salts killer. The case of Rudy Eugene is probably the most well-known one on the list so far, as everyone just typically calls him the bath salt zombie from Florida. To summarize the situation for those who may not be familiar, Rudy Eugene attacked and maimed a homeless man by the name of Ronaldo Popo back in 2012. The reason this went viral is that street cameras picked up a low-quality 18-minute clip of the attack. Rudy accused Ronaldo of stealing his Bible, which led him to beating the man unconscious. He removed his pants, though nothing would ultimately come of this. He began biting Ronaldo's face above the beard line, which included his left eye. The incident would leave Popo blind in both eyes and obviously visibly scarred. The attack ended when Rudy was fatally shot by the cops on the scene, although many people, including the police, suspect the drug known as bath salts. As the culprit for this episode, only a small bit of marijuana was found in his system. Prior to the attack, Rudy stripped himself of all of his clothing, disposed of his driver's license. He was also seen discarding his Bible earlier that day. The attack commenced shortly after this. It was found that Rudy and Ronaldo had met before this event, although not knowing each other all that well, when Rudy volunteered at a homeless shelter that helped Ronaldo. During the attack, a cyclist happened to be riding by and see the event was the one who alerted the police. When the police officers arrived on the scene ordered Eugene to stop, he would look at them, growl, and then return to biting. This led to the officers making the decision to shoot him fatally. Here's Popo's take on the story. Popo spoke to the police, whom he thanked for saving his life. On July 19th, explaining that Eugene, whom he hardly knew, approached him in a friendly manner, but then complained that he couldn't score at the beach and was souped up on something, started to talk about how they were going to die, accused Popo of stealing his Bible, and then subtly, without provocation, attacked and strangled him with wrestling holds, quote unquote. He then plucked out both of his eyes. According to the autopsy report, no flesh was found in Rudy's stomach, which is why the article only referred to the action as biting and not eating. What was found in Rudy's stomach, though, a couple of undigested pills that weren't able to be identified. His behavior was consistent with the drug known as bath salts, which is why law enforcement seems to insist that it was the utilized drug. Toxicology reports suggest that it was a newer drug that wasn't able to be tested for yet. Drug experts at the time would be called incompetent for being unable to determine what drug was, although they explained how quickly evolving the drug market was at that time, and although the tools had to figure it out, there was just no way of knowing which of the thousands of possibilities it could be without the pills fully intact. So yeah, we're at this point, especially in 2025, it's pretty much 100% determined he was on drugs. We just don't know which one it was. Obviously, that's not a detail we're ever going to have because the autopsy reports are completed. The body's disposed of. There's no way to go back and fully know what that man was on, but we know he was on something. Not a zombie. Now, as far as real-life zombie reports go, I think that's the last one we're going to cover. There are many more that people claim are quote-unquote zombie attacks, and it's just kind of smaller, less detailed versions of all of the ones that we just mentioned. We never saw it coming, likely on drugs or drunk, stabbed a person, ate something off of them. And there's a lot of stories out there. It's weird. Which is why we think most of them are drugs, because the behaviors match up with other drug induced actions. But I think that's the last one we're going to cover for this iteration. There are more out there, and maybe I'll sift through them and make a second episode at some point to this. And if you'd like that, let me know in the comment section. And if there are other zombie related topics that you would like to see covered, feel free to suggest them. Obviously, there are comments here on Spotify. I have an email address called zandomthoughts@gmail.com that you can send those topics to. But I had a lot of fun talking about this. There's a lot of things to talk about zombie related, obviously TV shows. But one thing that was the talk of the town back in 2011 when Walking Dead was at its most popular was the CDC put out an official "Be Prepared for the Zombie Apocalypse" article. And it was written as a joke, we later learned, but whenever it first came out, the internet blew up because they were like, "Oh, it's happening. It's not a drill." It was a drill. It was a joke, and they kind of had their own take on, how to be prepared for the zombie apocalypse. And this came from the official Center for Disease Control website. But what if I told you that's not the only thing that's caused a stir? This one's not as well known, but there is a report out there by the military. It's a military document that essentially talks about preparations for a possibility of a zombie apocalypse. Yes. Did you know there is a military strategy on the internet, and you can look it up right now and read it, called CONOP 8888. 4/8. CONOP 4/8. Now, to be fair, it's not an official document. Rather, an exercise that some military students pieced together for a project. Not everybody knew that at first, so the internet was like, it's not a drill for the second time. Although not officially receiving the blessing of the military, many higher-ranked officials have read the report and confirmed that this is pretty spot on how a zombie outbreak type scenario would be handled as far as a military point of view is concerned. It is referenced as a training tool on how to effectively lay out a plan for any scenario, and is apparently pointed as to a good example of how to do so. I'm not going to go through and read the entire document. It's like 20 pages of single-spaced. It's a long document, and I took the time to read all the way through it. But I did list a couple of things included from the document that piqued my interest a little bit. And I'm no expert, so I'm not going to be offering any insight, but rather just geeking out that the military actually put this together and kind of unofficially put their stamp on it. So I'm not going to read them, but it essentially has an entire section dedicated to what their objections would be. And it's essentially keeping and maintaining human life, exterminating the threat if necessary, finding a cure and protecting the people who are finding a cure, supporting and maintaining basic services such as electricity, Wi-Fi, all that stuff, or reinstating them if they've been taken away. It goes into a lot of detail about it too. Like, I'm talking about the objectives page in itself, I think is like a full page. And it even goes into the section of talking about what threat a zombie could mention, and which leads into the part I'm going to read. It talks about types of zombies that they're planning for. And this is, I think in a couple of these, you can kind of pick up that this is actually an assignment that some students did. And this is kind of where you can get it because some of the references they're taking. But zombie threat summary. Con Plan 888 is designed to address the following types of zombie threats. Pathogenic zombies. PZs are zombie life forms created after an organism is infected by a virus or bacteria or some other contagion. Radiation zombies. RZs are zombie life created after an organism is infected by an extreme dosage of electromagnetic and or particle radiation. Evil magic zombies. EMZs are zombie life forms created via some form of occult experimentation in what might otherwise be known as evil magic. Space zombies. SZs are zombie life forms originating from space or created by toxic contamination of the Earth environment via some form of extraterrestrial toxin or radiation. Which I'm pretty sure at some point in the references, they reference like Dead Space or something, which is a video game. Zombie satellites can be classified as SZs. However, they pose no danger to humans unless they conduct unplanned deorbit. Typically, zombie satellites only pose a threat to the SATCOM services like DirecTV. Weaponized zombies. WZs are life forms deliberately created via bio or biomechanical engineering for the purpose of being employed as weapons. Zombie weaponization programs are supporting infrastructures which include COAs to deal with these threats. The movie The Crazies exemplifies the most common type of WZ. Symbiont-induced zombies, SIZ, are zombie life forms originating from introduction of symbiont life form into an otherwise healthy host, although the symptoms of a symbiont zombieism is similar to most regards to pathogenic zombies. The symbiont does not kill the host organic quickly, or at all. However, there is no known way to save the organism after this zombieism has occurred, even if the symbiont form is removed. Vegetarian zombies. VZs are zombie life forms originating from any cause, but pose no direct threat to humans because they only eat plant life. This is talking about zombies from Plants vs. Zombies, which is a good indication that this is just an assignment. Although VZs do not attack humans or other animal life, they will consume all plant life in front of them. They can cause massive or elimination of basic food crops essential to humans, such as rice, corn, or soybeans. 2. Of note, where normal carnivorous zombies commonly groan the word brains, VZs can be identified as the aversion to humans. Affinity with the word grains. That's what they're doing the joke I did at the beginning of the podcast. They even talk about chicken zombies, CZs. Yeah, which is, it kind of references that there's a story where the chicken got its head cut off, but the headless chicken essentially lived for another 7 years or something like that. They do a good job of really breaking it down, to the point where they even broke down how they would handle it day to day in phases. Like phase 1 is set up base, maintain. Setup 2 is make sure they have the materials needed to attack the zombie threat and research the zombie threat, see exactly what they're dealing with. And it goes all the way up until they're ready in like phase 4, to where by day like 7 or 8, they hope to go out and start destroying all these zombies. But they look for survivors and stuff first. I don't know. I'm not going to read through it all. If this is a document you are interested in reading or seeing for yourself, or it's set up in a very tactful kind of way, and if that piques your interest, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the show notes, the description of the podcast, whatever you would call it on your app. I'm going to leave it in there. That's where the timestamps are. That's where my social medias are. I will leave the article in there so that you guys can take a look at it for yourself, which wraps up the zombie meat of the episode. That's why I opened up with talking about ham and Thanksgiving, because this is the meat of the episode. We can move on forward from the real life zombie scenarios. Did you feel that shift in the air? It was like the zombie stories are over, and now we're into the bottom half of the podcast. Oh, a quick shimmery shim-sharoo just transitioned us into the next part. It's a beautiful thing. It's the behind-the-scenes stuff you don't get to see, and I'm just exposing the business right here in front of your very eyes. But no, last episode I did jump into the segments talk, and I was mentioning how I was stuck in between 2 segments and which one was going to win out. And I think we decided it's not going to start this week. It's going to start in the very next episode. And I had to decide whether I was going to do rank every movie or continue doing Myrar. And I think we're going to continue doing Myrar, mainly because I talked to my wife about it, and she made a very good point. With Myrar, I went out of my way to watch movies I otherwise wouldn't have watched. And with Rim, or rank every movie, I would just be going back and watching a bunch of my favorites and re-ranking them. And as fun as that sounds on paper, she's absolutely right. The whole reason for doing that was to expand, and I had a list, wide of it. You'll hear people talking about a famous movie. They'll be like, you had never seen The Godfather, see? You got to see The Godfather. And it's like, add it to my list. And I currently have a list that's like a ridiculous amount of movies. And so if I'm going to spend my time watching a movie, yeah, there's a chance I don't like it. And yeah, there's a chance I view it as a waste of time. But it's about going out and experiencing that new movie as opposed to watching The Dark Knight for the 872nd time. I don't know if that's, the tally, but it's probably close. So yeah, starting next week, we're going to be doing Myrar. I just got to figure out which movie I'm going to watch in the meantime. So if Annalise, you're listening to this, I am open to suggestions, but I have a couple of ideas. So with that segment not necessarily happening till next week, all we have left is one more segment, and that's the encouraging word or the positive word or whatever you want to call it, in which I will be reading another excerpt from Jocko Willink's book, Discipline Equals Freedom, the Field Manual. And don't worry, I am reading a lot of different books, and although I have other ones that I will be reading from this particular book, not every single good word or good positive attitude reading is going to be from this book. I just happen to be enjoying it quite a bit lately. And even though he's not the most eloquent speaker or anything in the world, a lot of what he says is true. and it makes you think. And ultimately, that's what I want to do. I want to end the podcast after talking about real-life zombies and spooking you all to thinking, oh, okay, now how can I go forward and better myself? Or it is going to be all right. I don't know. It's going to be different every single week. But this week, I am reading an excerpt from the book that is simply entitled Questions. Knowledge is a powerful tool. It is the master of your tools. It is where your tools come from, because without knowledge, there is nothing. Let's take that one step further. Knowledge is the ultimate weapon. It trumps every other weapon. Thought is what wins, and the mind is what wins. Knowledge is what wins. And you gain knowledge by asking questions. Which questions should you ask? Simple. Question everything. Don't accept anything immediately as truth. Question it all. When you don't understand a word, get out your dictionary. When you don't understand a concept, break it down until you do. When you don't know how something works, dig into it until you do. Ask every question that comes to mind. That is how you learn. And most important, question yourself. Question yourself every day. Ask yourself, who am I? What have I learned? What have I created? What forward progress have I made? Who have I helped? What am I doing to improve myself today? To get better, to get faster, to get stronger, to get healthier, to get smarter. Is this what I want to be? This? Is this all I've got? Is this everything I can give? Is this going to be my life? Do I accept that? Ask yourself those questions, those hard questions, and then answer them truthfully. And realize that all of us can do better. We can be better. And it starts when you begin to ask those questions. So ask yourself the hard questions so that you can find the path to progress, to discipline, and to freedom inside the answers. I like that simply because it's a reminder that we got to check our ego at the door, and nobody is ever truly done growing. Every single day, you should be striving to make progress in some area of your life, because we can always do better. The reason why I know that is because humans are imperfect. And it's my personal belief that the day that you become perfect is the day that you can stop trying to improve yourself. And spoiler alert, that day is never going to come. You are never going to be a perfect human. The only perfect human that walked the earth died on a cross. That's my personal belief. And so in striving to get better every single day, it's important that you check yourself at the door, that you're constantly asking yourself the why behind your everyday reason why you do things, the why behind why you're going down the path in which you go. And like Jocko said, in asking those questions, you can get the answers you need and make improvements where necessary. Mainly because I don't know about you guys, but I can be going through life on autopilot sometimes. And then sometimes I'll just wake up from that autopilot and realize, oh, dang, I'm in a slump in whatever way that might be. It might be something as small as I haven't worked out in like a week, which might not be important to everybody listening to this, mainly because physical activity kind of chalks up to personal goals. Obviously, you want to have good health. But it could also chalk up to my discipline's really gone down, and I've ruined my finances because I haven't been paying attention to them. I haven't been budgeting the way I'm supposed to be budgeting. All it takes is a small series of choices to dig yourself into a hole wherever you might be. And I think it's important to check yourself and make sure you're continuing to walk the path towards, where you're supposed to be. And I don't know. I just like that little excerpt. It makes me think, and I don't have the most formulated thoughts, but it makes me want to strive every single day to be a better person, not just for myself, but for my family as well. And make sure that, as Jocko would say, we win. And yeah, that's all I got. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you've made it through both episodes so far, you're amazing. Even if you've just made it through one, if you've given it a healthy try, if you've tasted the spoon while big old daddy's making a batch of cookies in the kitchen, I definitely appreciate you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share the podcast with a friend. I need that sweet, sweet ad revenue. The Nintendo Switch 2 just came out, and I need to buy it for my daughter. Yeah, for my daughter. She's gonna be the one that plays it. I'm not gonna just hulk up on some Mario Kart. No, that's not me. I don't do that. No. But no, I don't have any ad revenues. But if you want to do any business ventures, if you want to suggest any topics, anything along those lines, I have an email you can reach me at. It's called ZandomThoughts, the title of the podcast, @gmail.com. Shoot me an email, whatever you might, suggest. Otherwise, a lot of you guys have done a very good job of reaching out to me, and you know where to get a hold of me if you want to suggest anything. Or donate. No, I don't even think I have it set up to where anyone can donate anything anyway. It's all jokes. The views and seeing they're much more than I ever would have expected is enough for me, and I'm forever thankful for that. So thank you guys so much for listening to that podcast. Just that one, though. What the heck? What am I on about? What's all that then? Who are you? What's that? Okay, that's enough British one-liners, and I'm out. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever time of the day it is for you. I hope it's fantastic. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!